Hello, I'm David Hunt. My guest today is Lisa Daniel. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, David. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Lisa, we know her so well in our community. For 17 years, you were director of the Melbourne Queer Film Festival. Wow.
More than is polite, I think.
Wow, incredible. Grand Design Australia.
Oh, yes,
we'll
yes.
talk about
that was a while.
a little bit later. And you're currently, studying at uni?
Studying, yep, criminology, a complete
Right.
departure from what I've done across my adult life, really,
Yep.
which was film.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll get back to that as well. Let's start off with talking about you as a kid. What were you like as a kid growing up?
Tomboy, for
Tomboy.
sure. yeah, absolute tomboy. Board shorts, sporty. Liked school, but didn't love school. Wasn't particularly brilliant at school, but did okay. But I really couldn't wait to get home and kick the football around and hang out with another tomboy friend. And
Yeah.
I was the oldest of three girls, so I was kind of the boss of the family, including the boss of my parents, really.
Oh,
Nothing's
really?
changed in that way. Still boss my parents and my sisters around. So, yeah, pretty tomboy would be the best way to describe
Right.
it. I was a very active kid. I didn't like sitting around doing not much.
Yep.
I liked reading, but I really needed to be out jumping off things. And
Right.
Mum would I'd get home from school and I'd disappear, and I knew to come home at 6 o'clock, and I'd come home at 6. And
Yeah.
she had no idea what I was doing before then.
Yeah.
So.
And which is a lovely way to grow up.
Yeah.
When did you realise that, you might be a lesbian?
I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. I think I felt different in primary school because I had intense friendships with other female friends, but I didn't know what that was, and
Yeah.
I certainly didn't know the word lesbian. But I don't know whether I felt different because I was a tomboy or whether there was something about my sexuality, because I don't think that I certainly didn't have any thoughts about sexuality at that age, but I did feel different, and I kind of was ostracised by my friendship group at some stage, but probably not actively until at least 14, 15. And I remember writing in a, those books that you see in IKEA that are they're just books, but they're just blank pages, they're just pretend books. I stole one from IKEA once, and it had the blank pages, and I used that as my diary.
Okay.
And I wrote in it, and I remember writing, please don't let me be a lesbian.
Oh.
And yeah, I was quite...
Why?
I just...
The stigma of
The stigma,
that
and
stage.
I just figured that I was supposed to get married and have kids, and that didn't appeal either. I was just like, well, I suppose I guess I'll do that. I never wanted kids, and I didn't think I'd have kids, but I just sort of figured that that's where I'd end up. And yeah, it wasn't a pleasant thing. It wasn't something that people aspired to be. You didn't sort of, at that stage of my life when I was 14, nobody said, hey, it'd be great if I was a lesbian. So, not that I came from a religious background or anything like that. I just somehow knew it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
And I remember stealing a copy of The Well of Loneliness, which is a pretty famous lesbian novel, from my school library because I was too embarrassed to borrow it from the library. It had a red dot on it, which meant it was, adult material or something like that. So.
And did that help you to make up? Did it give you a clearer path, or?
Because it was written in Victorian times, so not really. Like
Right.
I think because I didn't have there was nobody on TV that I could relate to. We didn't have role models. It wasn't talked about. There wasn't lesbians out in public really, and if they were on film, and they usually dropped dead or died of cancer or something. There wasn't positive role models in the media either.
Yeah.
And even that took decades to happen. So it wasn't something that I thought was a good thing. And then I think that changed when I went to university, which is what a lot of people will tell you, is that once they went to university, they went, hey, I'm going to try and be or be who I really am.
Did it become natural then? Were you comfortable with it then? Especially considering saying in your diary that I don't want to be a lesbian.
Look, it became more acceptable because I was very young when I started university. I was 17, and I grew up in the suburbs, so I was quite green and pretty naive about the world. And so going to university introduced me to a whole raft of cultural things, like different film, different movies, different people. It was a real eye-opener for me. And I met pretty early on, I met a friend called David, not you, David, but I met a friend, David, who was gay, and he started taking me to pokies on Sunday nights.
Oh, okay.
And I just thought it was the best thing ever.
Yep.
Like, I'd never heard of drag queens. I had no idea it was, that whole glory days of pokies. I never went to Penny's, which was the lesbian club in the 80s, found that a bit too intimidating. And so, David introduced me to the world of gay Melbourne.
Yep.
And I realised that there was a whole bunch of other people similar to me that weren't monsters, and, they were happy and that I could be happy. I fell in love with someone when I was 17 or 18 and had a brief relationship, and I just, ever since then, I've just kind of, it's fine. I mean, obviously it's fine. My parents are fine about it. My family's very supportive. But yeah, when I was a teenager, it was a bit scary.
What about just, you mentioned parents. When did you come out to them? How old
Funnily
were you?
enough, I just let them assume what was going on. I didn't come out to them until I finished a 7-year relationship when I was about 30.
When you finished it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my partner used to come to family dinners, and you know, and we behaved as if we were partners, obviously, and we lived together, and we clearly shared the same room, but we just never spoke about it. It was just an unspoken thing, and it was fine. And when, you know, when I said to, we actually broke up, and I said, oh, well, you know, that person was my partner, they were like, oh, well, you're duh.
Oh, so they realised
yeah, so
what
it was
going on.
not a drama.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
yeah.
Now, film. Where did the interest come from?
I fell into film, actually, because initially when I was in high school, I wanted to be a PE teacher. Which is pretty common. I think I probably had a crush on the PE teacher at school, so I was like, I want to be like her.
That tomboy thing.
Yeah,
totally.
And because I was really sporty, I played a lot of tennis and I played softball, and you know that seemed to be the natural thing. But I was really terrible at science, and you had to do like a science subject.
Of course you would. Yeah.
And so I just did what I enjoyed in what was then HSC, passed on a banana peel, and just got into like an arts degree at what was then Caulfield, which is now Monash. It changed to Monash while I was there. So I thought I'll do the arts degree for a while, and then I sort of started to like film, and I think I might have had a crush on one of the film lecturers at Monash.
So all of a sudden,
it's all about who you like.
Don't let me be a lesbian. All of a sudden, you've mentioned it a few times
probably
now.
stalking the film lecturer or something. So yeah, I developed it that way. I realised that there was a whole other world to multiplex cinema films, like there was art house film, and I started going to film festivals, and that whole world opened up. And then I kind of floated around. I took years to do a master's, and I did an honours degree, and then I did a 2-year postgrad in media at what was then Rusden, which is, I think is now Deakin. And so I did a lot of floating. I was a late bloomer, and then I was playing baseball at a baseball club, of all places, and a friend said, would you be interested in applying for this job at Queer Film Festival? And I'd been to the Queer Film Festival, I thought it was terrible. Like just, comparing it to what I was seeing at movie houses. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know, I think I was floating around working part-time jobs and working in hospitality and that sort of thing. And so I said yes to an interview. I remember sitting on the floor of a woman called Susie Goodman's house, who was the president of Queer Film at the time, and I sat on the floor, which was quite an unconventional interview, and we had a chat, and I got the job, and I thought, well, I don't know what this job is, like what is a film festival director? So I thought I'll do it for a year and see what happens, and then I stayed for 17 years accidentally.
Accidentally.
Yeah.
But you made that a small film festival into a very powerful film festival.
Yeah, it was a tiny little community event when I took it on, and I thought, why is this still so small, and why are we not earning more money, and why are we not getting more of the queer community along? So not having any training in that area, I just kind of looked outside the square and thought of ways of getting better film, and because this is all pre-internet, so I was at the mercy of film festival programs that I would try and get from overseas, and even finding out that there was other film festivals was hard. So
yeah, we forget that, don't we? The internet, we rely so heavily on it now, and there wasn't. So you had to. How did you find out about?
Well, luckily, just when I took on the job, there was a few film festival programs around in the office, and I was like, oh, there's other film festivals, and so I started faxing organisations and phoning and that sort of thing, and I just found out there was a whole world of film festivals out there, and so I started, sort of using their programs as a good example of what we could do in Melbourne. And I just tried to make it, I just wanted to run it really professionally, so it was easy to get tickets and easy to get to, and that the film quality would be better, but keep the community feel to it. And I think that's what I really tried to do over the years. And then we're lucky that the internet came in and web ticketing, and look, I was at a really good time in terms of the dissemination of information and how to sell things and marketing and publicity and that sort of stuff. I was lucky, and I had a really good bunch of people around me who were incredibly supportive and pretty much let me do whatever I wanted, which was, I was blessed to have that.
Now that you have walked away from it, you must be very proud of what you did within those 17 years.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud. I mean, we did turn it from a little tiny thing into an internationally renowned festival. I wanted to make it a festival that other festivals would talk about, and I think in the end, we probably ended up being in sort of one of the top 3 to 5 festivals in the world internationally. And when I first started, it wasn't even known that there was a Melbourne Queer Film Festival. So, yeah, look, it's a really nice legacy to leave.
Yeah.
And like I said, you don't do it in a vacuum. There was a fantastic team around. And I think going into it, David, you benefit from a certain amount of naivety. Like, I didn't know what the job was. So I didn't put any parameters on what I was doing. I didn't understand about funding. I didn't understand about sponsorship and all that sort of stuff. I had to learn really quickly. But I think in not knowing that stuff, you don't put any fences around yourself. You just go, hey, I've got all these great ideas, and then you try to make them happen.
Do you still go?
Yeah, not as much as I used to,
Because
obviously.
did you go for the first 1 or 2 years?
I did. I went to opening night. It was a really weird experience. It's
Yeah.
kind of like you've given your children up to another parent and you're not really sure if the parents are doing the right thing by the kids. And also, I think I'm one of those people that when I move on, I try to move on. And look, the board wanted me to go onto the board after I left, and I really didn't think that was fair to the incumbent. So I stayed away, and I did a bit of mentoring with the program manager, because when I left, because I used to do both the sort of the curatorial part of it, but I also did the business management. So that's a pretty weird combination of skills. So when I left, they actually employed a CEO and then a programming director. So I mentored the new programming director for a little while, but I really just wanted him to have free rein and not stick my nose in. But it's doing really well. I'm really proud of what they've been able to do.
Let's talk about Grand Design Australia. It's a very famous British show, Grand Design, which I followed, loved it, because you've got to have cable to watch. Or is it on ABC? I think it is on ABC.
It's on ABC now, I
as
think.
well, but it's older
initially
episodes.
cable,
And then they started the Australian one, and you were on it, and then you even went on tour with it as well, didn't you?
Yeah,
the
we
home
did
shows.
Yeah, we did a Melbourne home show thing, which was fun.
What was it like that, like people, while you were doing a build, for those people that don't know the show, the TV cameras are there, capturing certain parts, and then the presenter comes in and talks to you about this, that, and the other, and then they come, obviously, when it's finished. What was that experience like?
There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in that.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Look, I think they really liked the fact that they were getting 2 lesbians building a house together, because the show is often around a male who runs the money and the female who picks the curtains. And I think in terms of diversity, it was pretty lacking. There was a lot of middle-aged couples fitting that kind of middle-class, white, privileged kind of label. And I think when they heard about Claire and I and building a house, they were like, oh, this is great, let's get these girls on board. Look, they're not around as much as it seems. Like they sort of come maybe, the build took about 17 months. I think they were there maybe 6 times, the host there twice. And then you kind of pretend, you do a lot of sort of standing in fields when the house is actually half built, and he's saying, oh, is this the grass on which you're going to build? And I say, yes. And in the background you're saying, down tools everybody, because we're doing our introductory shoot. So look, it was fun, but you do you get mic'd up for about 12 hours and you do forget that you're mic'd up and you say all sorts of stupid things, but they're always looking for drama. And it is shot to a template. Like there's certain elements, for anyone who's seen the show, there's usually someone sitting in a car talking about the perils of building. There'll be someone standing in a flooded pit or something. So they do tend to.
Or the finances run out.
The finances run out.
They're
and,
big on that.
They would sort of push that element, and we'd be like, oh, where the reserve finance, we're actually helping a lot in the build. We did a lot of it ourselves. Got our hands dirty, learnt to use the tools and that sort of thing. So, look, it was quite fun. Nothing particularly bad happened, much to their disappointment. Like nothing fell down and money didn't run out. But we had our pugs involved, and I think it was kind of fun episode.
And it's a nice way to document it.
It's an amazing thing to have archived, something major that you've done in your life. I don't know how many people build houses, probably not many. Yeah, it's a great sort of historical document to have.
Now, let's talk about being a uni student again.
Yes.
Well, how is it? What's it like to go back?
Well, I'm doing it online because I really don't like people very much. So I figured I didn't want to go back to being a
Actually,
student in a class.
I think you're lying. You're lying. You
No.
don't come across as that sort of person.
I'm just good at small talk, I think.
Are you?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Okay.
Actually,
All right.
I'm not really big on, like, that sort of environment would not be something I'd aspire to. When I was at uni, when I was 17, like I said, I was really young. I found it really intimidating, and I didn't make a lot of friends. I made a few friends, but I wasn't into the drinking, joining the ski club, partying circuit at all. So I found it quite isolating. And deciding to go back to uni and retraining after the end of queer film and going into criminology, which was just something I was interested in. And I seem to be surrounded by lawyers and barristers, and two of my best friends are magistrates, which is extraordinary to have that kind of legal fraternity around you. So I've always been really interested in that. I thought the online community would be great for me, but I did worry that it would be a little bit isolating. But it's not. It's actually really incredibly collaborative.
Okay.
And you do spend a lot of time online with people, and in a way you're not judging people because you can't see them. So you're not judging them based on what they're wearing or how they look. You're just talking to them. And I've made some significant friends out of it. So
good. So what do you want at the end of the day from this, or maybe nothing?
I initially started with maybe nothing, but I've always wanted to go back to work, obviously. I did teach film years ago. After I finished my masters, I taught at Monash out at the Clayton campus, and then I taught film at the VCA. And I might go into teaching, I think. If I could teach online, that would be even better, because again, no people in my face. So that's the sort of thing I'd quite like to do. But I don't know, something in that area.
Okay, and why did you choose that? You know, like obviously you had an interest, but you need a little bit more than that.
I think it's quite a keen interest, obviously. It's a burgeoning industry. We're never going to run out of jobs in crime, are we?
No.
Unfortunately.
No.
I initially thought of psychology, and then a friend said, do you really want to sit around all day listening to people talk about their husbands not taking the bins out? I thought, no, that sounds horrific. So I just kind of thought, well, I'll try the criminology thing and see what happens. I love it. I'm really enjoying it.
You actually do now a show on Joy. It's called Word for Word. It's a similar situation to what we're doing here, where you go deep on like people's life stories. How are you finding that?
I'm loving it. I think something about having headphones on and a microphone in front of your mouth gives you permission to ask all sorts of questions that you may not ask in person over dinner or something.
Yeah.
So I can be really kind of a massive sticky beak. And so I'll ask things that, I would normally not give myself permission to ask.
Yeah.
Things like, are you scared of dying, or did that really hurt, or how was that divorce, or, just stuff that I would not necessarily give myself permission to do.
And do you feel, and I'm sure you do, that you have to have that inquiring mind, don't you? Like that. Like I love finding out about people's lives. I'm
me too.
infatuated by it.
Yeah, I'd much rather talk to someone else than talk about myself.
So how are you finding
this? Maybe I do like talking about myself, because I'm finding it pretty easy. Yeah? Maybe it's just the strength of your interviewing.
Oh, well, thank you. Because I've actually interviewed you at radio like this, haven't I? Many years ago, to be quite honest. And it's interesting because some of the things you mentioned, I go, oh yeah, I did know that, but I've forgotten it along the way. But it is that whole thing of the inquiring mind, isn't it?
Yeah, you need to be curious. And I think you need to give yourself permission to ask things. And sometimes, just by coincidence, some of the people I interview have had really challenging things happen in their lives. They've lost partners or parents, or, terrible things have happened to them. And I kind of go by the new idea of, I can't hurt them any more than that hurt them. Like if they've lost their parent, or have lost a child or a partner, anything I ask them or say is not going to hurt them any more than that incident. So I've given myself permission to be curious. And a lot of times people say, thank you for asking, because nobody ever wants to talk about that. Because we deal with tragedies and challenges in this country in a very strange way. And I don't, often we just sweep things under the carpet and don't mention them again.
But it's also a case of, like they want to get it off their chest sometimes as well.
I have found that. Yeah, I really have. I think people like revisiting their life. And I think, it's really important to get the lives of queer people down. They might not be really famous people, but they've done significant things in the community. Even some people that don't work in the community have been quite, heavy on the contribution to culture in some way, shape
Yep.
or form, and it's just really important to archive that for history.
So important. It's fantastic. Lisa, thank you so much. Lisa Daniel, you're a living legend
Thanks,
of our community here in Melbourne. I'm David Hunt. We'll see you again soon.